Welcome, everybody. Got a small little group here in the building, and see Gary and Lynn are watching online. Good to see you. Oh, by the way, you YouTubers, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps our channel. Nice to see you, Gary and Lynn. I don't think Judy's coming tonight. She's still recovering from her surgery. Hopefully next week, or at least by the candlelight service. We're going to have our candlelight service on Friday the 23rd at 6:30. And if we have people that want to do it on Wednesday at 7, that'll be another opportunity there. Just kind of stalling, thinking maybe someone will show up. Roger and Eric, how you doing tonight? All right. It's good. Okay. Well, we might as well get started. I'm sure Lula or somebody will trail in here after a little bit. So this morning, we saw the Lord and his disciples were met with a question about why they don't fast. And maybe that was prompted by the fact that he ate with tax collectors and sinners. And the Pharisees, of course, made a lot of rules about fasting. And they thought that that was pretty amazing of them, showing their religious expertise. They're willing to fast. Of course, they let you know that they were fasting. They didn't just do it to the Lord to seek his wisdom or seek his presence. And the answer that Jesus gave about why he didn't fast and his disciples couldn't fast is in Mark chapter 2, verse 19 and 20. And Jesus said to them, while the groom is with them, the attendants of the groom cannot fast, can they? As long as they have the groom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the groom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. That's what we looked at this morning. And we saw that Jesus' presence is a joyful thing, and that all-encompassing joy, that joy that just takes over your whole life. When you come to know the Lord, if we were perfect in our faith, we would be so thrilled all the time that Jesus is our Lord and he's in our life. Well, the disciples had him right there, and they had a lot of work to do, and they were attending to him, and he was building his church, which is his bride. The attendants can't fast at that time because there's just too much going on, too much celebrating, and too much work to do. And it takes up all the space and time that people have to be able to devote themselves to that. And so mourning and fasting, that's the opposite of celebrating. Fasting is when you are seeking the Lord because of distressing circumstances, and those circumstances are weighing heavy upon you, and you can't deal with them all. And so there you decide for yourself to have a time of just seeking the Lord, and you turn off the TV, you turn off your cell phone, turn off your video games, you don't fix your food, you just spend hours and hours seeking the Lord. Now you might say, I'm going to fast all day today. And it's a work day. So you go to work. At those times, Jesus would teach, don't show off that you're fasting. Just keep that as a point of personal devotion, that you're seeking me. And you're not seeking your comfort and your success and your happiness in the things that are normally a part of your life. You're doing away with those for a small period of time. So in the context of a wedding, it's really incompatible. If you're at a wedding, the occasion is so grand and the occasion is so important, and the people that are getting married deserve the people around them to be focused on what they're doing and happy about it. It's an occasion that just doesn't fit with fasting. Weddings have banquets attached to them. and parties, and you wear nice clothes, and you might drink a little alcohol if you're inclined to do that. Not that a lot of us don't do that, but in moderation, we don't consider it to be a sin either. So, and certainly we're going to look at a passage in a moment where Jesus created wine that was the good stuff that would get people at least a little bit relaxed, a little bit affected by the wine and happy. And that's, of course, in John chapter 2. This is Jesus' very first miracle. I suppose we could find some significance in that it's the first miracle, right? He was kind of reluctant to do it even, but John recorded it as the first miracle, perhaps to show Jesus' willingness to befriend people and relate to people, and he didn't come to judge or condemn people. He came to save them, and this is a part of normal life that happens, and Christians go to weddings and celebrate those things. It's what we do. This is John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. So Mary was there. Jesus has already had he was already baptized. The Spirit had already come down upon him and anointed him for his messianic ministry. And right off the bat, there's a wedding. It's on the calendar. Mary's invited. Jesus attends with her. The mother of Jesus was there, and both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. Turning down a wedding is kind of a rude thing to do. If it's a appropriate wedding, you got a man and a woman, and they're devoting themselves to each other, and that's going to be their life partners, and we're celebrating the union, and you know these people, and they've invited you to not go. Hi, Lula.
Hi.
Welcome. Come on in. To not go to that wedding would be a little disrespectful. You might have an excuse. It might be a good one, and it may not be that offensive that you don't go. But if you can go, you generally want to go and celebrate a wedding, right? If there's a wedding of someone you know, it's what you do, and you try and dress up for it, and you try and you try and show respect and enjoy yourself, because that honors the couple that's getting married. So Jesus and his disciples were invited to this wedding that was taking place in Cana of Galilee. When the wine ran out, that's a pretty big mistake. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come." Let's break that apart for a minute. The wine ran out. Weddings are planned to the detail. Guest lists are made, provisions are made. There was a miscalculation about how much wine was going to be needed, and the wine ran out. And without the wine, people would grumble and people would complain that they didn't have enough wine, and they came for the party, and why can't we have a party? So there's a little bit of concern here, and Mary senses it. She's sensitive. She senses the awkwardness that the person putting on the wedding would have felt, that they didn't have enough wine to support the whole celebration of the day. Hello? Oh, Gary? Okay. I hear someone out there. All right. So the kind of person Mary is she loves people. She wants people to be happy. She will serve their needs and put herself out to help people. And she knew that her son Jesus could do something about it, because he's Jesus. You know, she's always been amazed by him, and he's been super wise all of his years, and even had the educated men at the temple amazed when he was just 12, teaching them. And so she knew that Jesus would do something about it. But Jesus wasn't quite ready. He wanted to bring out his miracle making powers at a time when it suited him. And he said, my time, it's not my hour yet. He was just getting started. He didn't want to be pushed into this position. So what do you do when someone so sweet as Mary puts you on the spot like that? What would you do? Well, Jesus said, woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come. It wasn't Jesus' concern that this man had made a miscalculation about the wine, but it was his mother's concern, and he loved his mother. Then his mother said to the servants, okay, so there would be, it was a fairly wealthy family that was putting on this party, and they had their servants, and the servants were to put the food out and the wine out and whatever. Whatever he says to you, do it. Do it. Whatever he says, do it. She had a lot of confidence in him.
That's what Mary said
To the servants.
Right.
Yep. Whatever Jesus tells you to do, do it. That's great advice, by the way, isn't it? No matter what it is in life, if Jesus speaks to your life about something, do it. He's never going to lead you astray. Okay, so there were, verse 6, 6 stone water pots set there for the Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each. Quick, 6 times 25, 150 gallons. 20 or 30 gallons, so 25 gallons, right? 100, did I do the math right? 150 gallons of water in these huge stone pots, sitting there for the purpose of ritual baths and purification and whatnot. Jesus said to them, fill the water pots with water. So they filled them up to the brim. They did exactly what Mary told them to do, which was exactly what Jesus would tell them to do, and they did it right to the very brim. So that's a lot of water. That's 150 gallons of water. I don't know what our baptismal tank takes, but probably more than, or it's probably more than that. Or maybe that's the amount. I never counted the gallons in our baptism tank, but it's a lot. And it would definitely take care of a lot of people. So you can imagine it's a pretty big party. So they filled them with water to the brim, and he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the head waiter. Or perhaps this guy, the head waiter, is like the one organizing the whole event, right? And so he's like the master of ceremonies, and he's making sure everybody's got what they need and that they've got it at the right time and there's enough of it. Fill the water pots with water. So they filled them to the brim. He said to them, draw some out and I'll take it to the head waiter. So they took it to him. When the head waiter tasted the water, which, by the way, had become wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, every man serves the good wine first, and then when the people have drunk freely, then he serves the poorer wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. That's a shock. If you're planning a party and there's alcohol involved, you know people are going to become a little bit affected by it. And once they're a little bit affected by it, their judgment's a little bit less astute. Right? You kind of lose a little bit of your judgment powers if you're under the influence, right? So people will, to put on a good party, give the fancy stuff first. Everybody's impressed with the quality of your stuff. And then when you don't care anymore, whatever's left, we'll drink it. Jesus made the best wine. And the wine had already run out. It's a big party. It's gone on for perhaps a week because these parties did go on quite a while. And Jesus made all of this wine, and it was a shock to the people that knew where it came from. It was water that Jesus turned into wine. Jesus turns water into wine all the time, not through a miracle. You know how he does it? How do you turn water into wine? You plant grape plants. The grapes grow on the plants. Then you harvest them at harvest time. And then you squeeze them, and they become grape juice. And then over time, it ferments and becomes wine. So water goes into the ground. It sucks up through the roots of the grapevine into the grapes, plumps them up, and those grapes become wine. That happens all the time. Jesus did it without the use of any of the natural causes that are involved in making wine. He did it just with a miracle, with his word. He said, fill up those pots of water and take some to the head waiter. And the head waiter, he was just amazed that the better wine came after the worse wine. And Jesus, or the servants that put it out, knew that Jesus had this power. So he's kind of keeping a lid on his miracle powers. He didn't want to do it. He did it so that only the servants could see it. But why did he do it? Why did Jesus turn the water into wine? Any ideas?
Well, because his mother asked him so nicely.
Yep, mother asked him nicely.
And he didn't want to disappoint her.
Yep.
Because she's his mother.
Yep. And if he was against the idea of people drinking wine at a wedding, would he have done it?
That's what I don't know. That's what's in my mind.
I can tell.
God really, deep down, he doesn't want us to drink because, like my dad was an alcoholic. I don't want to drink because I'm afraid I'll stir up that gene and then I could become an alcoholic. Gary had a problem when he was younger, but
Sure.
he stopped. But I'm thinking, why did God create this if he doesn't want us to drink? I mean, if some people, if they do drink, they keep on and they become, like when I got my hair done.
You can way overdo it. It's very easy to way overdo
I
it.
was telling her I wish Gary would stop smoking. Well, she smokes, but she said smoking is like drinking. She said if you have one drink, you want another one. If you're, an alcoholic. And she said it's the same way with smoking. If you're addicted to it, when you have one, you want two, you want three.
Okay. All of the stuff you said are good reasons not to be involved in drinking. But would you put that rule on somebody else?
No, but my daughter's supposed to come down for my heart catheterization. And she said, Mom, I've already got a friend I can stay with. Well, I know her friend. I said, Karen, I love Amy. She grew up with her, but she's kind of a wild woman and she likes to drink. And I said, she drinks, Karen. Karen goes, I do too, Mom. I said, well, I hope you don't too much. But I know she doesn't. But when they were younger, see, I didn't even know it. I didn't even.
The rule side of your brain is saying, I don't think it's wise to drink. I wouldn't drink. Therefore, I don't think anybody should drink. But can you go that far? Can you say, I don't think anybody should drink?
Years ago when I was younger, I went to Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And it's so sad. People are killed by drunk drivers.
It's terrible. Right. So there's irresponsible drinking, but we're not, and the Bible is clearly against being drunk and to the point of that kind of problems, like drunk driving and getting into fights and, carousing and just being all about the alcohol and got a party. That's not a good frame of mind. It's not a good worldview. But God did make grapes, and grapes do naturally ferment and become alcohol. And the alcohol does affect people in a certain way. God has never said in his word, don't drink. He's, he believes, or he expresses, we should not overdrink. Do not drink irresponsibly to the point of hurting yourself, others, or just not having a good head on your shoulders to make decisions. But is there an effect short of that would be a good thing?
Well, it says take a little wine for thy stomach's sake.
Okay, so that might have a medicinal purpose. Okay.
They told my stepdad to drink. I think he was supposed to drink wine. He kept it in the cabinet, but he didn't because his dad drank too much too, and his son. But they said to drink it, it would thin in your blood if it was too thick.
There may be medical advantages of a moderate drinking habit, but there's one obvious one that we're looking at here in this passage. A wedding is a time of celebration. Celebration is enhanced, or at least social ability to relax and enjoy the moment is enhanced with a small amount. These people had already drank. When it says they have drank freely, the Greek word there is become intoxicated. They were feeling the effects. They were tipsy. I don't know how much, and I know that the wine in those days was generally watered down a lot. Wine today, alcohol today, a lot stronger, right? May have less medical benefits. I mean, if the water is impure and you can drink wine, that's made through a process that God invented of the water going into the grapes and the grapes fermenting, and you can drink that. Whereas if you drink the water that's there, it might have animal droppings in it or who knows what. So to me, my view of drinking is I'm not going to chew anybody out for doing it in a responsible way. I don't feel the need to do it myself. But if it happens, it happens. I think if you make a bad decision, you drink too much, hurt somebody, that's a big problem. There's got to be consequences for that. But Jesus made wine to at least not let the host be embarrassed that there was a mistake in the planning, or some kind of mistake was made, and it would have led to his embarrassment, but his embarrassment was alleviated by Jesus' miracle. I'm wondering, there must be something in this situation that made Jesus think it was okay to do this. Obviously, he wouldn't do anything wrong. So I'm thinking the occasion. The occasion was one that required celebrating. And sometimes stresses of life, keep you from having that all-encompassing joy. See, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, he said, I'm the groom. These people are attending me. While I'm here, they can't fast. They've got to be celebrating. It's important. They've got to be celebrating. This should take up all of their thoughts, is how wonderful it is to know Jesus. And it's like a wedding, right? And then he goes on and he talks about the old wineskins and the patch that's unshrunk that goes onto the old garment, and those just don't go together. You got to have new wineskins for new wine. And so when he was saying that, he was indicating the cause for joy and celebration was so great because he was in their life. And he was there, and there's going to be a time when they can fast and mourn after I'm gone. And they're, obviously when he died and was buried, they had 2 very miserable days. And then when he rose again, they were all rejoicing again. But that would have been time that they probably didn't feel like eating. They might have fasted. But while Jesus is there, the joy that you feel should just completely encompass all of your thoughts. There's no room in your life to fast. It's time to celebrate because Jesus is there. And so I think he referred to a wedding in that situation to show us that a wedding is a wholesome cause for celebration. And then we combine it with this passage from John 2, where he made some really good wine, the kind that can get you intoxicated. And he made that wine, a huge amount of it, for the party to go on and not embarrass the host. But I think the real thing is celebration. God wants our lives to be full of joy. And joy isn't something that requires great outward circumstances. You might be stressed because you lose a job or you get sick. It might bring you down in the dumps a little bit, but it's really, compared to the joy of knowing the Lord and having an eternal life with him forever, that is overwhelming joy. So God wants us to not focus on the worries of life, but rather to focus on the joy. Now, wedding celebrations involve people, right? It's the people that live around you and know you that you invite to the wedding. And for those people to come together and have a joyous time, kind of like what's going to be in glory, Jesus said he's not going to drink wine again until he drinks it in his kingdom, right?
So we're all going to be at the marriage dinner.
You won't have any hang-ups. If Jesus hands you a glass, you won't have any hang-ups. You'll say, wow, I'm free. Knowing in our day and age, the application is probably a little different because of the level of alcohol in it. And so you can become drunk more quickly. You can cross over the line of being a little bit socially loose to being rip-roaring drunk and a belligerent jerk. There's a line, so a little bit maybe loosens you up and helps you to relax and enjoy your company. A little more, and you start to make dumb decisions. A little more, you might hurt people.
Or you might hurt yourself.
You might hurt yourself, yeah. So obviously, Jesus wouldn't have made the wine if it wasn't the right thing to do. He was put up to it by his mom, asked in a nice way, and his mom didn't want the host to be embarrassed. He did it in a way that the servants knew what had happened and were amazed. And it wouldn't have been the wrong thing to do because Jesus doesn't do the wrong thing. So there's got to be some good that came of it. And just because there's a risk of drinking too much and fall down and hurt yourself or get in a car and hurt someone else, we can't say the same thing. We can't encourage it. But what we see going on in this passage is there's a wedding party and the people are going to enjoy the event and the occasion. So how do you apply that? How do you apply that in life? Do you enjoy being around your church friends and your neighbors? Do you enjoy fellowship with them? Do you come with a very judgmental attitude to a party and just question why do they have booze here? I think Christians get in a lot of trouble by thinking in a rules category. I've made a rule for me. I'm not going to get drunk. To avoid getting drunk, I'm not going to drink at all. Therefore, that's the right thing to do. It's the wise thing to do. Why doesn't everybody else do that? Let's look down on our nose at them because Not everybody else does that. I just say that what Jesus was doing was honoring a wedding and approving of happy, joyful fellowship at a wedding. The way he did it was he did a miracle that changed water into wine. Now, what we have to do, if we're going to try to be like Jesus, obviously we can't turn water into wine. It's not recommended that we go around and give people the ability to get wine, but we can honor the weddings and that people have, and we can enjoy people and reach out to them and be friends to them, not judge them. Even though there's a little danger involved, people make their own choice. And they're probably, if you don't befriend them because they're drinkers, you're not going to have an opportunity to take the keys away when they need a friend to take the keys away, right? Yeah.
I have a friend, and I've invited her several times. I might invite her to the candlelight service, but she put on Facebook, and she does it a lot, and I love her. She likes me a lot. She works at Subway, but she likes to go to the bar. And I'm thinking, and then she's showing drinks that her and her daughter were having at a bar. And I'm thinking, why does she like to drink so much? I mean.
Well, how do you know she's drinking so much?
Well, I don't know if she's drinking that much, but I know she likes to go out to the bar. She even went to Las Vegas. And
well, who'd she go with? Who'd she go with?
She's a beautiful woman.
She went with her daughter, right?
She showed herself on Facebook in a swimming suit, and I'm just thinking. But one time I was up there, and she wanted to find a different place to live, and we sat there and I prayed for her, and I think she really liked that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get her and her girls into church.
I think where you have a friend who drinks and you're concerned about their drinking, or a family member, a loved one that drinks and you're concerned about their drinking.
I don't think she drinks too much, but I just can't understand why she wants to go. I don't know if it's to meet men or what, because she's divorced, and she had 2 sons by a white man she's married to. Now she's got 4 girls by a black guy. And and all these black guys know her, and she's a beautiful woman, but every time, a lot of times when I see on Facebook, she puts in there about her daughter graduating. We were invited, we could have went to the graduation, but I couldn't. There was something else coming up then.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to gone, but then I thought, they probably will have liquor there.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like that Jesus rocks our world when we got our thinking, this is the way it's supposed to be, and Jesus does something completely contrary to it. We're the ones that need to stop and think, wait a second. Why am I thinking this way when Jesus is,
I think God doesn't want us to really overindulge in anything, in food, in sex, or whatever. I think he's trying to say, there's a limit. You can go so far, but don't go beyond this.
Yeah, the way I like to explain it, Lula, is that God sets us free from the rules so that as a free person, we can make choices that are coming from our love for God or our love for self, right? And we might tell God, step back, I'm going to enjoy this. Or we might say, I'm going to put into my life the things that are going to help me be a better friend to God, because God reached out to me.
Back in the 70s, they had those bracelets, what would Jesus do?
Yeah. Yep.
But a lot of times too, I think it depends on how you're brought up.
Hi, Sherry, by the way, I see you're in the chat.
Like my parents, my stepdad, I think his dad was kind of a drinker. He was almost like an alcoholic.
Yeah.
They didn't have liquor in their home. They didn't want it.
So obviously drinking can be a danger to people. They can get behind a wheel. They can hurt themselves. They can turn their liver into mush. if you care about somebody that's doing something that's self-destructive, you have every right to care about them enough to say something, right? And you're not being judgmental, right? I have a friend that took away his friend's keys. That friend was about ready to slug him, but later on thought better of it, that my friend took the keys away so he wouldn't drive. And he ended up not driving, not getting in trouble, and he was thankful the next day.
It's like I pray for Gary. I want him to quit smoking, but he can't, and I really wanted to because his mother died of lung cancer.
As a point of health, you can love somebody enough and tell them, I wish you wouldn't do that for your health's sake, but you can't. You're not really helping them to look down the nose at them. I think a lot of people feel that Christians are very judgmental about it. And Jesus is one who, like I said, we think this is the way it's supposed to be. We've got our box and we believe in it. And everybody should fit into our box. And Jesus comes along and says, there's no box here.
Former church, they were really good Christians.
Sure.
But they talked about it, the lefties. They told people if they had liquor at their wedding, they would not go. They said, we will not go.
Okay, well, maybe they're making a choice for themselves to say, I don't want to go because I will be at risk.
I was a teenager and I thought, that's wonderful. They're standing up for what they believe in, because they were saying,
but there's a difference.
Not to do this.
There's a difference. This is the box I've made. No drinking. Everybody should be in this box. Anybody that doesn't fit in this box, I don't want anything to do with them. But you see the difference? Anybody that's not in my box, I don't want anything to do with them. That's a wrong attitude. But if I know,
standing up and saying, we're Christian, we don't drink, and we don't want to.
You know what though, Lula? When I was in college, I was asked to fill a pulpit at a little country church way out in the sticks. And I went out there a couple times to fill in for their preacher. And one of the deacons said he was shocked that someone from the university, or the university that's got all these crazy wild kids that go out drinking all the time, there would be someone like this who could come and stand in our pulpit. And then he said, those Muslims get it right. Those Muslims get it right. They don't drink at all. They're teetotalers. That's the way it should be. What? Seriously? What religion are you in, man? Right? So.
But sometimes I've looked at that like, in a way, they are doing right. They're not drinking.
You can't do anything. Lula, you cannot do anything right at all without Jesus, right? You can do good works. You can think they're going to help or a good thing. You need Jesus in your life.
I don't think they believe in sex before marriage either. I may be wrong. I don't know. Because I don't know the Quran. But
well,
I know
let me just say that there was some main character in the Quran. Probably get my video, censored. But he had. How old was his wife? I think she was 7 or something when he married her. And they had more than one wife. And so, no, the Muslims don't have a very good record of how to deal with sex. The women don't. The women are abused and second-class citizens. Yeah, no. They don't drink alcohol as a rule. Mandated for them by their religion. They don't drink alcohol.
Yeah, because at that one soccer game, they told them they couldn't have liquor there because they were there.
Sure.
But I mean, don't you feel that God tells us we have a limit, like don't overeat, don't.
God talks to individuals, right? So the people that you said didn't go to the wedding if there was alcohol there, if they were thinking, they're not in my box, I want nothing to do with them, that's wrong. But if they're thinking, I don't want to go there because I might get sucked into something that would offend my own conscience. That's a wise choice. It really depends on the reasons and the motives of your heart, which only God can see.
If you go in, like, if somebody sees you in a bar and you're a Christian, I guess I'm worried, like, when you had that on the board about being criticized, I'm worried, they might say, well, she's a Christian. What's she doing in there?
Who cares? Our critics aren't our judge. And some people are going to look at us and they're going to have all these assumptions about us. We can't do anything about that. We shouldn't live our life to try and please our critics, right?
But, we go to Buddy's Pizza with his brother and his wife on Christmas Eve, but they drink, but we don't.
Sure.
And they know we don't.
But do you feel like if someone were to see you at Buddy's Pizza knowing that they served alcohol, that they would think of you as a lesser Christian?
Not now, I don't.
Okay, good. Then you're getting some freedom. God wants you to be free. He wants you to enjoy your life and not worry about other people's decisions.
Because if they were to say something to me, I'd just say, I'm here with my family, but I'm not drinking.
Yeah. And I don't want to undermine the breadth of people I can minister to by, showing up drunk somewhere, right? I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, my friends, when their first year of marriage, they've been married for over 40-something years. I was in their wedding, but I was surprised. They're really good Christians, but when they were on the plane, my friend told me she had a drink, I guess they served liquor. They serve it now. I think they didn't during the pandemic.
What verse would you give them if you thought that they, like for your daughter, for instance, you were complaining to your daughter that she shouldn't go to the friend's house because she drinks. Your daughter said, well, I do too, Mom. Okay, what verse from the Bible are you going to give them?
Mostly I would just tell her, I told her not to overdo it. I said, if she's going to drink.
What verse from the Bible would you give them?
Know.
Okay, there is a verse. There's one I can think of, I might say.
I think there's something in the Old Testament that says, don't get drunk.
The don't get drunk is policies in the New Testament. Be not drunk with wine is in the New Testament.
It's also
In the Old Testament, it says, buy whatever you want. Wine, strong drink.
In Psalms, I think, not to be like
wine is a mocker. Yeah, the person who's drunk, it's like they're on a ship in the waves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and those are reasons not to drink. But if you're going to give a Bible verse to give advice to somebody who might want to drink, there's a real good one.
What is it?
All things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable, right? So you apply that as
What chapter?
it's in 1 Corinthians 8 and 10, I believe. It's in there twice. But the idea there is sure, you can have a drink. It's not a problem with God. Jesus turned water into wine. He wants people to enjoy themselves at weddings and so forth. But just because you are allowed, it might be lawful for you, is it really the best decision you can make? Or could you make a better decision that would do more good for the Lord? That's a question only you can answer for you and only I can answer for me.
Is that the same way like with people that smoke marijuana?
Sure. Why not?
But I have a friend, him and his wife and their kids are real good Christian people. I worked with him at Bastrop, but he opened up a marijuana shop. I wouldn't do that, but he did.
I'm personally kind of disgusted by it all,
Yeah.
but I don't make the rules either, right?
But they said on television, they said people think that this stops the pain. They've proven it's all in your mind. It doesn't stop the pain. And I told my daughter, because she smokes it sometimes, for fibromyalgia. And I said, Karen, they said it don't stop the pain. It's all in your mind.
Well, that's where you sense the pain. Your mind says, ooh, my arm hurts. Now, if you could teach your brain to not feel the pain of your arm, it doesn't mean the arm's still not having trauma, but you're not bothered by it because the brain doesn't listen to the signal coming from the arm. So All things are lawful, okay? All things are lawful, right? There's not a rule binding on you, anything like we're talking about. There's no rules about that. But what could go wrong? What could go wrong? You want to think your life, you get one chance to live your life. And you could live it as a drunk and never be a blessing to anybody. You could absolutely say no alcohol whatsoever. I am not going to listen to anybody. Anybody that drinks around me, I'm leaving. That wouldn't necessarily be good for anybody either. Where would you want to come? What position would you want to come to be a blessing in a situation where some people do drink? Well, if they're going to hurt themselves or others because they're overdoing it, take their keys away, right? Take their keys away. They could fight you, but you say, you will sober up and I'll give you your keys back. You know, because you love them enough. You don't want them to go hurt somebody or themselves, wreck their car, right? So there's plenty of opportunity for a good Christian to say things about that, right? But Jesus turned the water into wine to enhance the celebration at a wedding party and avoid embarrassment of the host. You can't say that Christians should have a hard and fast rule. We're not going to be like Jesus. Now, I'm sure Jesus didn't approve of anybody drinking too much and acting like a fool. You know?
It's like on our street, this one guy we got to know, well, he's not friends with us now. But he goes every day or every other day to get a bottle of beer or something.
Yeah.
He has, I know
one of the verses I gave you was, not all things are profitable. One of them says, all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. Paul deciding for himself, I will not come under the power of anything. So what's the power of an addiction? To get you to do something you shouldn't do, or it would be bad for you. So Paul is making a choice. I want my wits about me. I want to make the most impact for the Lord I can. Can I do that getting drunk all the time? No. Would I tell Timothy, don't drink a little wine for the sake of your stomach, when Paul's the one that told Timothy, take a little wine for your stomach's sake, right? So Paul seems to have found the balance is your freedom. If you really care about somebody, you will confront them if what they're doing is harmful to themselves or others, or going to get them in trouble. They may not like to hear it, but you tell them. When you're talking about your daughter staying at a friend's house, the loving mom that you are, you could say, well, honey, remember, I just hope you won't go too far, and I don't want you to get hurt or hurt anybody else. And she probably knows that. She's probably a responsible drinker.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. And that has to do with this discussion?
No, wait a minute.
I just want to know how it connects.
My car is in my name. I got the title in my name. And every time we go to sign a piece of paper, it's in my name. And keep telling me it's her car and my car? No way, no how.
Gary, that's not really relevant to our conversation. I don't care. Well, I'm just saying it's.
You're going to have to be quiet.
You're welcome to say it.
My car,
Okay.
Okay.
But what I'm saying to him, we're married, and by marriage law, it's both our cars.
Yeah, half the property of the family. Yeah, okay.
And he don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm not gonna go by that.
It doesn't really matter. You guys can figure that out. But the point is,
It ain't gonna work out.
Gary, here's the point.
What's the point?
The point is this. We tend to get stuck in our thinking, right? We tend to have our ideas and we aren't very flexible with our thinking. Jesus comes along and he does something that completely blows our thinking out of the water. And that should cause us to rethink, right? We want to have open ears and open hearts to understand what the Lord's teaching us. We don't want to just follow a tradition and, for the sake of the tradition. Christians aren't really.
I was working at the police, and I was talking to this guy outside the door. He said, I told him she took this Social Security and she spent all that money on that car.
Gary, that's not what we're
Now,
talking
no, wait a minute.
That's not what we're talking about.
I don't care.
I pay bills with it. I
Yeah.
don't spend it.
That's more of an issue for you guys' finances, and you guys just figure that one out. But I just want everybody,
There's no help.
Gary, the point is, you got to listen to Jesus,
I am listening.
because we get our thinking so firm that we're not really open to what he has to say that'll change our thinking.
I just trying to make a conversation. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about Jesus tonight.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's talking about him changing the water into wine.
Yeah. And to me, that seems like a very shocking thing that he would do, coming from a tradition where, alcohol is kind of thought of as.
Yeah, my brother, my dad, my mother were all alcoholics, and I turned out to be an alcoholic because.
No, they drank.
Well, see, that's the point where if you care about your mother, your brother, your
I
dad,
do.
then what you do, if you see them hurting themselves, is you say, Dad, I love you, or Brother, I love you.
I've done that.
Yep. So you say that, you have the right, as someone who cares about them, to intervene and help them make a better choice, because you think what they're doing is dangerous. Now, if you just disagree over a moderate amount of alcohol, that's their choice versus your choice. It doesn't
I'm not saying that.
matter.
I'm
It's
not
when-
saying that. I still love my family.
Sure. But you just told me they were alcoholics.
No.
No, they weren't alcoholics.
That's what you just said.
You just said
But if
his
they go
mom
to
and
like
dad
maybe
drank
a
and his
football
brother drank,
game
they're not
or
Okay. Well,
whatever.
maybe they're not alcoholics, in which case, don't worry about it. If they're responsible with it, they can just make their choices.
Well, his mom and dad are both deceased.
Okay. Yeah. So what the point is,
overdid it.
good point. You don't want to overdo it.
Overdid it.
You don't want to overdo it. And so when you come to something like this, you want to make sure that you're preserving your opportunity to be a blessing to other people. You can just simply pour it all into yourself and have a good old time and do your own thing, and who cares what anybody else thinks, but you're wasting your life. That life is not a life that's really going to matter.
What am I going to do with my life, though? Because I still love my family. How am I supposed to live?
Well, if you can help your family, then that's the
I've been trying to do that.
okay. Then keep trying, and when the Lord opens the door, then you can keep doing it. You got to wait upon the Lord. For certain people aren't going to listen to you until
They don't want to listen.
until the Lord opens their heart. That's what you got to wait upon. And you can pray about that. You can say, Lord, please open their heart.
And another thing is, my brother took me to a football game, and I was about the nicest person that you would want to meet. I enjoyed myself and everything, and then I even pitched in money to try to make him feel happy. No, you know what he did? You know what he did?
Nope.
He said another microwave that we didn't need. We got a microwave in their home.
Sounds like a problem to talk about with him.
You ain't know how.
Well, I mean, I don't know the situation other than you're disputing about a microwave. So,
That's stupid.
well, your word, I wouldn't say that about people. It's not kind. Anyway, the point is, Jesus wants us to have good relationships, and he wants us to be useful in blessing other people's lives. So when it comes to things like this, make a wise choice that doesn't cut you off from being a blessing to other people. all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. What good might come from your choice, or what bad might come from your choice? Be a thoughtful person who makes decisions.
Maybe that's what I should say to Karen. What good will come or what bad will come.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jesus apparently thought that some good would come from turning the water into wine, which kind of rocks our world a little bit. But Jesus is Jesus, and we got to change our thinking to match him.
You know something better than that?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of Pontiac.
I agree with
Ain't there
you.
no in there?
I agree with
I'm
you.
gonna prove a point here. I've never lived in Pontiac so long. And then a car sits in front of the house. I don't know what they'll do with my stuff. I got the snowblower, I got the weed whacker, I got the blower.
Yeah, I would pray about that, Gary.
There's no limit.
I would pray about that because it is kind of a concern the way crime is going.
I'm very concerned about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's pray. We'll close and we can have more of this conversation. Father, thank you for your love and for your grace. You're so good to us. And I pray that you'll help us to make wise choices about things, knowing what Jesus' values are. He valued those people having a good time. He valued that man not running out of wine and being embarrassed. So help us to have the same kind of consideration for people as Jesus does. We thank you in his name. Amen.